Hi, welcome to today's Myofascial Moment. I'm going to take 10 to 15 minutes for some self-treatment at the end of the day. I'm going to work specifically with pelvic alignment. You may recall, you've heard me say, the pelvis is shaped like a bowl. A lot of times it just moves like this. It should be able to move in about 6 directions, front, back, side to side, up and down independently or somewhat independently of either side. Now, the best way I know to do this for myself is usually with some ball work. Now, I've got some different options here today because I'm not sure which one I need. This one is my smallest ball. It's also the most firm. I generally don't use this for the type of work I'm going to do today. This one's a bit squishier. This one is really squishy but also has the largest diameter. I'm in a soft chair today. Now what I'm looking to do, this sort of myofascial self-treatment is essential for working with the pelvic floor as women. We get bound down, everything in our body just gets pulled straight down into our pelvic floor. It's like we have trouble sitting up straight. A lot of times that's a function of the respiratory diaphragm, but a lot of times it's deeper down into the pelvic floor. Just this drag. I've had a couple C-sections. I'm familiar with how it feels for my pelvis to just get glued together. It's why I do this type of work. I'm going to describe what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to sink into some self-treatment. Again, you're welcome to join me. I'd encourage you to find a softer chair, collect a few different types of balls if you can, or maybe something to let some air out of one of them, or pump it up a bit if you need to. I'm going to take my best guess that I'm probably going to want this ball. Now, working with the pelvic floor, you've got to think you've got the 2 bony sides of the pelvis, your 2 hip bones. They're connected in front at the pubic symphysis, at the back at the sacrum. And in between there, you have just this round, soft perineum area. That's where we're going to put the ball. Now, you kind of want it in front of the tailbone, behind the pubic bone, and in between the 2 sits bones. There's kind of a bony ring that we're looking to put the ball right in. Almost like you're going to birth a baby. So, or sitting on an egg. That's another way a lot of people like to think of this. So, in your comfortable chair, soft chair, you're just going to kind of place that ball right in the center. Now, you've got to kind of move around just a bit. Now, this isn't guaranteed to be comfortable, but it is guaranteed to do the work you need. And actually, I'm going to use... I'm going to leave it where it is. I thought I was going to use the larger ball. I'm going to leave it where it is. Now, I've got a chair with some arms here because I want to be able to control the weight I put onto this ball while my pelvis settles and softens over it. It's not always easy for me to just sit on a ball. I do have to kind of settle in. Now, with good myofascial self-treatment, it's over a period of 3 to 5 minutes or longer. As the body settles, as you quiet your mind, as you slow your breathing, as you soften in your body. Now I am sitting up quite a bit again because I don't want to just slump on the ball. This is some active sort of myofascial release for me. And what I'm feeling, I can feel very distinctly my sits bones around the back edges of the ball. They kind of get squeezed together. My tailbone kind of gets pulled forward. It all just kind of binds down. Much needed work. I can feel almost like I'm sitting on a ball, because I am sitting on a ball. I can feel this start to work up into my pelvic floor, which actually feels much needed again. With this sort of work, you want to be really mindful, and sorry I get distracted in this sort of self-treatment. With this sort of self-treatment, you want to be really mindful of what the rest of your body's doing. If you're clenching in your low back to hold yourself off the ball, if you're tightening in your spine to hold yourself off the ball, if you're not able to soften over it, a couple of things you can do. One would be to put a pillow on top of that ball and sit on the pillow. Now, this isn't intended, or the purpose of this is not to cause pain. Pain is a signal that the tissues need some help. But if it causes you to grit your teeth and kind of wince and clench and try to hold yourself off the ball, that's an indication that the tissues are not ready yet, that they need a bit more softness or more gentleness engaged into them first. You should be able to settle over the ball, which is what my pelvis is doing. You also don't want to lock yourself in to a rigid position. Like I said, I'm not slumped. You don't want to just slump. I actually want my pelvis to settle as evenly as possible over the ball so I can feel where further work is needed. Now, as you're here, you might feel some subtle movement begin in your pelvis, maybe up into your spine, up into your head, your neck, your shoulders, as they begin to unwind. When we release tension in the pelvic floor, it has, or it tends to have, it can have, an overall softening effect in the body. In particular, I can feel as my pelvis settles and I get some less clenching in my pelvic floor, my spine softens, which actually feels really nice at the end of the day, which is why I'm here. I'm going to take a minute and focus here on my own self-treatment. Again, when I talk, I tend to tighten in my pelvic floor, which is kind of counterproductive to what we're doing here today, or what I'm doing here today. Start to slow your own breathing. Start to quieten your mind. Start to gently feel into your body. Years ago, I had an episiotomy. Actually, I should have had an episiotomy. I tore and had some stitches off to the left of my tailbone in that perineum area. I can feel this starting to work into that area of scar tissue. Again, I get a bit quiet and soft in my own body with this sort of self-treatment. If you've had children, if you've been through childbirth, vaginal, C-section, if you've had hysterectomies, any sort of vaginal surgeries or surgeries that they've gone through vaginally, bladder repairs, bladder slings, this can be very, very essential work to restoring the health of your pelvic floor. It can work in conjunction with some good pelvic floor physical therapy. You want to be mindful that any type of therapy you do, it is gentle and works with what your body can allow. You don't want anyone digging around, forcing through tissues. And you'll notice when this gets a bit intense for me, and again, I start to pull off the ball. When that happens, I do want to settle in here today for some good self-treatment. A lot of times with ball work, you'll hear me say just sit on a ball. Totally just sit on a ball. This is work I do while I drive. I tend to put a ball here directly in the pelvic floor. I put it under hips. I put it under the backs of legs, behind my sacrum. But when I want good quality work, I do it in this way. Now, it all tends to accumulate. It all counts. But when you want really focused work, find a quiet space. When you want that accumulation of work, go ahead and take your ball on a drive. Sit on it while you watch a movie. Sit on it at the dinner table. Anywhere you're sitting, I keep a ball in my car. I keep a couple balls in my car. It's always good, in my opinion, to sit on a ball. But again, consider quality of myofascial self-treatment versus quantity. There's a balance kind of between the two. I'm going to stay just a few more minutes here, settling into my own self-treatment. Quiet in my mind. Soft in my body. Feeling into my pelvic floor. Allowing my spine to soften. shoulders to soften. Head and neck softening into a bit of unwinding through my body. A couple things can happen when you start to work with softening into your pelvic floor. And like I said, we're working partly with pelvic alignment. Pelvis should be slightly movable up and down, front and back, side to side in relation to each other. As the pelvis gains some space to self-correct, as the joints start to soften and gain some space to move better, your low back might get achy. That sacrum in the back gets a bit of different space to move. If you've had any tailbone injuries, you might feel this as kind of a recreation of those tailbone injuries. That is all common. It's actually good. Principles of good self-myofascial release: if you're not forcing, if you're softening in your body, settling into something, kind of like that, settling into something that feels tight or restricted in a way that your body can allow, you're not going to injure. But it might be intense at times. I can feel my right hip settling over that ball a bit differently. As it does, I can feel in my sacrum just a little bit of achiness. Again, that scar tissue where I had some stitches, kind of fiery, kind of hot, rippy, burny. It's not uncommon for this area of the body to feel numb. It's not uncommon for this area of the body to go numb as you work with self-treatment. Just check in with your own intuitive sense. What do you need today? Where are you holding tension in your body that maybe you can take a breath, and as you exhale, let that little bit of tension go. Sorry, I got distracted. My sacrum's looking to shift just a bit. Again, if you feel any drifty sort of a movement in your body, you don't want to stop that movement. Your body will have a natural stopping point. You can keep an eye on the clock if you want. You can stay here longer. You can have a good sense of, that's all I can handle today, which is about where I am. I'm going to need some different sort of ball work after this to just help my pelvis and my sacrum continue to self-correct. We'll have more on that maybe tomorrow. Whenever you're ready, you can remove that ball in any way you want. Again, you can stay here longer if you'd like. Like I said, my sacrum's starting to adjust. If I was going to continue this tonight, I'd probably get down on the floor, lay on my back, and just put the ball under my sacrum. Let it continue to settle a bit differently. I don't have time for that tonight. This was my 10-15 minutes at the end of the day. And do a bit of good quality work. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll see you next time.